Hello everyone, and welcome to a game I myself would describe as perfect, but you'll just have to see it for yourself. It was played in round 8 of the 2018 Sinquefield Cup between Shahryar Mamedyarov and Magnus Carlsen, so both of them, of course, members of the 2800 club. But before we check out the game, I do have something I need to bring your attention to. I hope you were all having a wonderful Sunday and that you all had an excellent weekend. I myself was having an excellent Sunday, but then I received an email from a certain individual of the St. Louis Chess Club. Now, I would like you to pause the video here and read this email, just so you know what's going on. So, for those of you who have read it, congratulations, you are an excellent subscriber, and for those of you who might have been a little lazy to read it, basically what they are saying, or what Tammy from St. Louis Chess Club is saying, that I have, used copyrighted material from their live feed from the 2018 Sinquefield Cup, and basically what they are saying that this is copyright infringement, and that they require me to take down my videos that use those videos that use their content. Now, I have no idea what content they are talking about, and I've sent them an email. I've received no reply. The only reply I received was the one where they politely asked that I remove the tweet where I publicly showed their email, but the contents of the email and the email, but I did no such thing because, well, under the US law of fair use, this pretty much screams as fair use, because what fair use is all about is that you can use pretty much any copyrighted materials for the use of commenting, creating parodies from it, education, pretty much anything that isn't just for stealing content. But as I've always held the St. Louis Chess Club in the highest regard, this really upset me a little. Not too much, but it did upset me a little. And now I have no idea how this whole thing will turn out, but in case you one day decide to visit my channel and the channel is gone, just so you know what happened. But yeah, returning to the game, like we said, it's Shahryar Mamedyarov versus Magnus Carlsen, round 8 of the Sinquefield Cup, and like I said, I really consider this to be an almost perfect game, but you'll see what I mean. Mamedyarov has the white pieces, and he opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, g6, knight to f3, and bishop to g7, so the king's Indian defense. g3, c6, we have bishop to g2, d5, knight bd2, and here Carlsen goes for a very rare move. Here he plays a5, and a5 is basically an Ivanchuk move, because Ivanchuk used this move on numerous occasions. For example, in 1999 he used it in the Monte Carlo Amber Rapid tournament to draw his game against Anatoly Karpov, and also in 2015 he used it to defeat Radoslav Wojtaszek. So here b3 is played by Mamedyarov. Like we said, in 1999, Karpov castled in this position. Mamedyarov figures b3 is better. We have a4 by Carlsen, bishop to a3. This is the same as was played in the Wojtaszek-Ivanchuk game. And here, Carlsen goes for a captures on b3. In the Wojtaszek-Ivanchuk game, Ivanchuk decided to castle in this position. But okay, we have a captures on b3, a captures on b3, and castles by Carlsen. We have castles and the rook to e8. We have e3 and the bishop to f5. f5 is a beautiful square for this light square bishop, slices all the way here to b1, and it's not all that easy to challenge this bishop. For example, knight to h4 does challenge the bishop, but then bishop to d3 is the move. The rook on f1 gets under attack, rook to e1, and now you have a very nice bishop on d3. You can simply continue developing, and if white ever decides to attack it, for example, now opens up an attack, d captures on c4, the bishop is guarded, and white will lose a pawn here. So a very nice square for the bishop, not all that easy to counter it. Queen to e2, now guarding the d3 square. And here comes knight to a6. Here now you might think that, okay, now that the queen is guarding d3, I might actually go for this knight to h4 move. But then bishop to g4 is also possible. And now, if you're not too sure about it, maybe you don't want to play a move like f3 and open up your king all this much. So after a6, we have knight to e5. It's always better to put your knight on a nice central square than put it on a funny square like h4 most of the times. We have knight to e4. Carlsen opts for some exchanges in the center, and here Mamedyarov calculates precisely that this is definitely favorable for him. So we have c captures on d5, c captures, knight captures, bishop captures, and d captures on e4. So Carlsen was able to relieve the pressure in the center, but as a result he has doubled e-pawns now. And here you might go for something like queen to c4 to pressure f7, as the knight is already nicely pressuring f7. But if you do this, then black can eliminate the knight on e5, and after d captures on e5, now white has doubled pawns as well. And although white still has a very nice bishop here, a dark square bishop, and black does have some dark square weaknesses, it's not all that great for white. So here Mamedyarov really shows some extreme class, and he goes for queen to b5 first. So now he guards the knight, bishop captures would be met with queen captures, and black would simply give up the bishop without even doubling white's pawns, and also this comes with a threat of queen captures on b7. So rook to b8 is played, and now comes queen to c4. So now Mamedyarov pressures Carlsen's f7 pawn, offers Carlsen to grab the knight on e5 and double his pawns, but it was very important to bring the rook from a8 to a less active square, that is b8. So okay, bishop captures, pawn captures, and queen to d3 now. Carlsen does have doubled pawns now as well. White has double pawns as well, and now Carlsen offers a queen trade. Of course, Mamedyarov doesn't want to capture and undouble Carlsen's pawns, so rook 8 to c1. And this is the move that's important for you to realize was made possible by moving this rook from a8 to b8. Now this rook 8 to c1 is possible. We have queen captures, rook captures, and now, okay, Carlsen's rook is now on a not so active a square, but Carlsen does have a problem here. How does he activate the knight? There really aren't any squares. How do you get this knight back into the game? Carlsen finds an excellent maneuver. He plays b5. b5 with the idea that if you capture on e4, then you get b4. Pushing the bishop back. After bishop goes back, now comes knight to c5, attacking the rook. After the rook moves, let's say rook f4, knight captures on b3, Carlsen would create a very powerful passed pawn here. So after b5, rook to c6 is played, attacking Carlsen's knight, and now, of course, not b4. If you play b4 with an idea of exchanging the funny knight for the bishop, you would lose the game, because after bishop to b2, the knight has nowhere to go. Even if you guard it, rook to a1 is coming, still your knight is lost. So after rook to c6, rook to a8 was played. Now Carlsen defends the knight and also prepares to bring it back to b8. Rook f to c1, Mamedyarov doubles up on the c-file, knight to b8, and now comes rook to c8, offering to trade rooks. King to f8, we have bishop to b4, as the bishop on a3 was under attack, knight to a6, and now rook captures on a8. Rook captures on a8, and now again a wonderful move by Mamedyarov, bishop to a5, again not allowing this knight to enter the game. You can't enter it because the bishop is guarding here, the rook is guarding the c-file, and the knight to b8 would of course be met with rook to c8, check, king here, and now after b4, Carlsen's pieces would be completely blocked. You can't move the knight because you lose the rook, you can't move the rook because you lose the knight. This would be easily winning for white. So okay, after bishop to a5, Carlsen plays rook to e8, king to e8. We have rook to c6 now, and here comes king to d7, attacking the rook. Rook to b6, and now comes knight to c5. Attacking Mamedyarov's bishop, we have b4, and now knight to d3. And here, okay, you could capture on b5, let's say rook captures on e5, then king comes to e6, threatens to grab the e5 pawn, and here black would grab the pawn, and white, although white would have a passed b pawn, he would not be able to push it all the way. And even if you tried to protect the e5 pawn, then you get rook a1 check, king moves, and after rook a2, here it's white who would be in trouble. So, after rook d3, we have e6 first with check. A very nice move by Mamedyarov that triples black's pawns, so now Carlsen has has tripled e-pawns, and only now plays a rook captures on b5. So although the material on the board is equal, Carlsen has tripled pawns. So can Mamedyarov use this to his advantage? Well, Carlsen goes rook to c8, of course putting a rook on an open file, prepares to bring the rook over to c1. We have rook to b7 check, king to d6, and now b5. Mamedyarov starts pushing his passed pawn. Rook to c1 check, king to g2, and now rook to c2. Mamedyarov allows this, and there's a good reason why he allows it. He plays king to g1. Now, of course, Carlsen can repeat moves with rook to c1, but it's very interesting what would happen if you capture the pawn. The problem with capturing the pawn, for example, rook captures on f2, is bishop to b4 check. You have to move the king. King d5, now comes rook to d7 check. King moves, and now comes rook captures on d3. Removing the defender of the rook on f2. Captures rook on f2, and after king captures bishop, now you start pushing your passed pawn, and after king protects the d pawn, so the d pawn can be pushed as well. We have c7, d2, white gets a queen, black gets a queen, and okay, black is up a pawn, but it's a completely drawn endgame. There is no way to push for advantage here for either sides. So, after king to g1, as we saw, rook captures on f2 is impossible, but what about knight captures on f2? Could Carlsen grab the f-pawn with the knight? Again, we get bishop to b4 check. King moves, now comes b6, and now it will be very hard to prevent the advancement of the b pawn, as Carlsen did lose a lot of time by playing knight captures on f2. The rook has to stay there to protect the knight, or if you move the knight, let's say knight h3 check, king moves, now you bring the king over, rook captures on e7. Rook to c1 check, king moves, and after rook to b1 attacking the bishop can always come to c5. Protect the pawn can come to b7 because the rook is guarding b7, and of course bishop can go to d6 and guard the queening square, so white would be winning here. So Carlsen calculates precisely. He does not go for anything captures f2, rather he pushes g5. He wants to push g4 and not allow Mamedyarov's king to enter the game by either f3 or h3. We have rook to b8, and now comes rook to b2. Of course, you have to put your rook behind the passed pawn, whether it's your own pawn or your opponent's pawn. Rook to d8 check, king c5, and now b6. Carlsen goes rook to b5, attacks Mamedyarov's bishop. We have king to g2, and now we have g4. If you did something like rook captures on a5, of course this does not work because of simply b7. There's no way to prevent the promotion here. You would have to go rook b5, and then after white gets a queen, you have to give up your rook. White is up the exchange and winning this game easily. So, after king g2, g4 by Carlsen. We have h3, and here it's a very interesting moment in the game. Here Carlsen played h5, and this was move 41, so time control has been reached already. I don't know if anyone saw the live coverage. Yesterday I was too busy, trying to figure out that email from the St. Louis Chess Club, but if any of you have seen the live coverage, do share in the comments if maybe there was an interview with the players after the game. But it's very interesting why not g captures on h3. For example, king captures on h3, and now knight captures on f2 with check. King moves, and now knight to d3. Carlsen would be up a pawn. Okay, he still has a triple e pawn. The rook is preventing this pawn from ever reaching b7, as b7 is a light square. So it's very interesting why Carlsen decided not to go for this. It doesn't seem to be all that much white can do here after the king moves, wherever the rook would be guarding the 5th rank, so the king will not be able to advance up the board. Seems like a very nice position for black, so I'm very interested in this. But okay, after h3, h5 was played, h captures on g4, h captures on g4, and bishop to c3 now. We have e5, a very nice move. There's always time to capture the b6 pawn. If you capture it with the king, then Mamedyarov will exchange rooks, and it's pretty much a drawn endgame. So Carlsen first tries to improve. He pushes e5, and now you get this position where Carlsen has a pawn on a light square that guards his knight that's also on a light square. The knight from the light square guards this e5 pawn that's on a dark square. This pawn is on a light square, and this pawn will be pushed on to a light square, so Mamedyarov's dark square bishop will pretty much be useless here. So Carlsen could use this to his advantage if he can activate his rook, but if he can't activate this rook, if Mamedyarov will be able to exchange rooks, then even with all this advantage against the bishop, Carlsen will not be able to push for advantage. So rook to g8 was played, Mamedyarov threatens the g4 pawn, and here we have king to c4, attacking Mamedyarov's bishop. Here Carlsen tries to infiltrate with the king. If he manages to get the king behind the rook and capture the b6 pawn with the rook, then perhaps he could do something. He doesn't want to capture the pawn immediately and allow rook captures on g4, then this pawn would be threatened as well. So after king c4, Mamedyarov goes back, rook to c8 check. King to d5, and now rook to d8 check. King to c5, rook to c8 check, and here Carlsen doesn't feel like going back and forth again, he decides to play king captures on b6 finally. Mamedyarov now, as planned, exchanges rooks, rook b8 check, king moves, rook captures, king captures, and then now comes king to f1, trying to activate his king, but Carlsen goes king a4, king e2, now comes e6 as planned. So now we have this position where white, there is no chance for white to ever make a pawn move. Black has these pawns on light squares, and the only pawn on a dark square is guarded by a knight that's on a light square. So the bishop is completely useless here, but so is the knight, really. I mean, you can't move the knight because you'll lose the e5 pawn. The e5 pawn isn't really an important pawn, but again, there's no way to get closer with the king. King to f1 was played, king b3, bishop to a5, king c2, king e2. Here Carlsen played knight to c1 with check, king e1, knight d3 check, king e2, knight c1 check, king e1, and here, after repeating the position for 3 times, the players agreed to a draw. So yeah, I mean, it's really, I don't think I haven't put it like through a really deep analysis, but I believe no mistakes or no inaccuracies were made in this game by either player. So really, does seem like a perfect game. And I forgot. I did have a nice photo challenge prepared for you, but I didn't show it at the beginning of the video. So now we'll see who lasts till the end of the video. So who are the gentlemen in the photo here with Magnus Carlsen? One of them is a famous bass player of a certain famous band, so best of luck to everyone. And yeah, I would like to thank Christopher Gleason, Mitchell Friedfield, Eric K. Dickinson, Troy Haskin, and Johannes de Ruyter for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will keep you informed about what's going on with the St. Louis Chess Channel and that accusation I received about copyright infringement. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon.